Hey, Shawn G here from Chasing the Truth. You're about to get some of the best of samples of shows I've done over the last 5 years. God bless y'all and enjoy. ABC folks that come out and say, "Hey, D, don't be messing with this area that you're researching in or anything like that."
Not yet, but I don't really even though I have a show, I don't really publicize when I'm going out and I don't really say exactly where. I use like a lot of broad terms and I used to not take my cell phone with me, but I started back to doing so. That question makes me want to stop again because, they can trace cell phones very, very easily, but they can also see you from satellites, see what time it is on your watch, so but luckily I've got to circumvent all that. I've heard of it happening. I believe it happens, but no, I haven't had it happen to me yet.
Okay, since we're talking about cell phones, I recently did a interview with a fellow. His name's David Bross, and he is a journalist that researches telecommunications and aerospace. And we did a show about 5G. Have you come across areas where there were Sasquatches or Bigfoot or Dogman or what have you, and all of a sudden there is a new cell tower popped in that area, and for whatever reason, the Bigfoot or Sasquatch are gone?
No, I haven't. I've not heard of that one yet, but that's definitely something I'll keep an eye out for.
Mm.
Wow.
Well, that just come to my mind since we're talking about talking about all these energies and magnetic waves and whatnot. They just come to my mind. Uh, Now, these 5G, just for your reference, these 5Gs boxes are about as big as a window unit air conditioner. So they're about 3 foot by 3 foot. So yeah, you'll go
Right.
by one and not even really realize that you're next to one. Have you had any issues or you said that you just recently started back with cell phones being on your person with the
Right.
folks that accompany you on these occasional ventures into the woods. Have they had any electronic issues when you're out investigating?
Not recently, but we all individually, because we all started as our own independent individual investigators. We all on our own have every last one of us has had cameras die, camera batteries, flashlight batteries, cell phones die on us that had full charges. But not since I've been going out with more than just by myself have I experienced that. So I don't know if it's something that's combined with our personal electromagnetic field or what, but yeah, everybody I'll talk to has experienced that at least once, which I
Now,
find very, very strange.
well, then when these electronic snafus happen, whether a battery drains or anything, does anything occur around that window of opportunity when say you got a camera battery that dies or your watch fails or your radio goes haywire or whatever? Does anything paranormal happen?
With me personally, it's always whenever I'm close to an encounter or close to one of the creatures. Not all the time, not even half the time, but the times that it has happened has been when I've been relatively close to these creatures in the field.
Hmm, that's interesting. To actually kind of put it together and say, well, we know these ley lines are happening. There's a magnetic field kind of correlation with it, and then you stick in that idea about 5G and man-made signals would affect these
Right.
creatures. Have, I know this is kind of re-asking the same question. Uh, have you noticed anything that would affect a sighting or the potential for a sighting that had to be man-made or related to some sort of man activity?
No, not really. All the places I go are extremely primitive, primitive old growth forests. But no, I haven't had an occasion to run anything like that so far.
Okay. Have you seen any activity with these Bigfoot or dogmen that they actually take our trash, man-made trash, and utilize it as a rudimentary tool or in their everyday life. Like, we talked about these signs and signals and stuff that they use with bending trees and throwing them up in the tree lines and stuff like that. Do they use these as their own tools?
Now, I've not seen them use trash as tools, but I've seen them break sticks and stick them in the ground, or break saplings, break the roots off of saplings and stick them in the ground at an angle, at the sharp angle, stuff like that. But I've not seen them use our trash to do anything like that. I've seen them take human trash where it has no business being, where there's no footprints around whatsoever, but you'll see a brand new, Bud Light can or something. It's not that the wind carried it there because it's in the middle of a thicket. So I've seen strange things like that, or burnt wood where there has no business being, where it's not in a floodplain, or where floodwaters would get to it. But never them using it for necessarily tools.
Okay. Recently, well, not recently. Over the course of the last 6 or 7 months, I've seen some Bigfoot related videos, and quite a number of them are faked, obviously, or are misconstrued as something else. But I have seen some that capture these Bigfoot, or whatever you want to call them, running, and it's at a distance. Unfortunately, it's not like the Patty videos where you actually could see the muscle movement and stuff. But they run at a pretty good clip. Have you experienced anything like that? That's seen them running? How fast do you think they can run, move, or jump?
Yeah, I've seen two over the 4 years that I've been doing this. I've seen two drop down to all fours and take off running through the brush, and seemed like they, from just a dead stop, they took off at like 35 miles an hour. So they're ridiculous.
So they're more at home walking bipedal and quadrupeds.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. They're just as comfortable either way.
Have you ever seen one that had obviously an old injury, like a limp, or seen a disformed arm that was obviously broken and grew in an inappropriate manner?
No, but I saw one that had its toe broken.
How'd you know that?
We found the track.
Oh, and okay.
And we found several different tracks with the same individual, and it's what would be our ring finger toe, or whatever it was called, was broken and bent over to the side on top of the middle toe.
Ew, that's interesting. So, I don't know if you know this about me personally, but I'm an amputee. I've lost my left leg. Have you come across any amputated individuals that were related in this investigations of the Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm not sure. We sometimes find one footprint, and no matter how hard we look, we can't find the remaining ones. I'm really surprised that we were able to find two footprints in those knuckle and handprints over that past weekend. It's just that they're so smart in there, and they have a wherewithal about the tracks they leave and the evidence that they leave behind, that they're actually present. It's remarkable how smart they are, and how well they pay attention to their own, to their own presence and what they leave behind.
So you have, I've talked to you before, and you've referenced that you've been sort of not welcomed, but acclimatized to a group of these Sasquatch. Have you seen them start growing old over the course of your investigations? Like, seeing one individual, and the next season you notice that the same individual, but their hair's grayer or lighter or darker, or anything like that?
Not particularly, but I've only spent 4 years in that same area, so I still got a little bit of time. People believe that their life expectancy is for about 50 or 60 years, and then some people believe that it's about 150 to 200 years. I'm more inclined to believe it's somewhere around the middle, just because of their size. I don't think they can live to 200 years because of gravity and them being so big. Their high protein diets and their high volume muscle mass. Maybe they do. It's hard. We're not going to be able to tell until we find a young one and then an old one to study. But I don't think I've been around. Now, I have seen a whole lot less young adolescents.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be because they're growing. But no, I've not got to see them grow old yet.
Okay, so since we're going down this age progression, what's the difference other than obvious size from adolescent Bigfoot? That's average normal human being child all the way up to these 8 9 feet. What's the difference? Is there more hair on the adult versus the adolescent? For females, do they have breasts that increase in size, or I'm just taking a stab into the dark. Have you noticed any of these features?
Um, Seeing the alpha female and then seeing a young adolescent female or a teenage female with adolescent breasts and stuff like that, I believe they go through a growth spurt that's relatively quick. Um, I've not seen like a progression of one individual from adolescent all the way to adulthood, but I believe that they would have to have some massive growth spurt just from seeing the size of the adolescents, like you said, or the ones I've seen are mostly normal sized children to these 8 9 12 feet monstrosities. There has to be some period of time in there where they just grow exponentially.
Hmm.
But yes, they all seem to be covered with hair from head to toe, though. I don't think that the younger ones have any less hair as opposed to the older ones.
I was thinking like for us as humans, males tend to have more hair on their facial features versus adolescents.
Right.
But that's where that came from. Have you had any evidence of them obviously been in a family group? Have you had any evidential sightings or whatever that says that they take care of each other? Like an elder, obviously would probably need more care than a healthy adult versus a
Right.
child. Care. Have you seen that caring kind of evidence?
Well, 40 miles west of my main research area, a gentleman had an experience with an older one. He said had completely gray hair, was about 7.5 feet tall. I believe that the older ones are excommunicated, and the younger ones, I believe, they have little nurseries for them. I found little piles of berries that have been squeezed because the skin on them is out. The outside skin is bitter, and to us is poisonous, but the inside's very sweet. And you could tell something with fingers did it. It had the indentations of like an index finger and a thumb pressing that sweet juice out of it. And there'll be little piles. I found like 8 little piles that were set, almost in a row next to each other, and butt imprints that looked like little kids were sitting there. So, and the whole area, the tree, it looked like it had been swept clean all the way around this area where we found this at. And there were logs lining this area, down trees like lining it. It was like a little classroom area. So I believe that maybe was a daycare or where one of the females was charged with watching the adolescents. I'm not sure, but I found that evidence to be very, very fascinating in the story it told.
Okay, when you go into these areas where the Bigfoot or Sasquatch are climatized to, I have heard that they have sentries that stay guard
Right.
over the group. Have you been recognized, or do you recognize the sentries, or
Yeah,
is
I
that even a
recognize them to
thing?
the point. Yeah, that's absolutely a thing. I recognize them to the point where I whistle a certain song when I come in every time without fail, and they will whistle that song unsolicited. Yeah.
So are these sentries typically male or female or a mixture of both?
It's hard to say. I believe they to be male, but not because I've studied the anatomy. That's just a guess of mine. But there will always be one to my east, and there'll always be one to my west. And as I travel through, they seem to uh, uh, shadow me in a counterclockwise fashion.
Huh. That's interesting. Um, wow. Okay. So we've pretty well beat the Sasquatch questions to death. Uh, let's talk a little bit about giants. I know that that's one of the things that you researched in the past, and I don't know if
Right.
is that a current love of yours to research?
Yeah. Any of the anomalous stuff like that, giants, any of the strange ancient old gods and stuff like that. like the red-headed giants that the natives, pushed off the shores. And
Yeah, I heard a story that there was a cave system that the natives, way back in the before the Europeans came, uh, cornered a bunch of these red giants in this cave system. I think it was in the Midwest somewhere, and killed them off there. Is that a familiar story to you?
yes, I believe they set a fire at the head of the cage and suffocated them. Right?
Just mentioning it just brought that back from my mind. I haven't had enough coffee today. That's probably the reason why I can't bring that out.
I got you.
But
Oh, very.
yeah. So with these giants, what are they, like the Nephilim, or are they the offspring of these fallen angels, or what's your twist on this? What's your perspective?
I believe that there were two different types of giants: the ones that were pre-flood and the ones that were post-flood. And I believe that they're both the offspring of angels and women, the sons of God and the daughters of men. But I believe that the ones before the flood were way, way bigger, like astronomically bigger than the ones post flood, because the Earth is different. Even science talks about how there was more oxygen then. That's why you get bigger creatures, like the dinosaurs and whatnot. But yes, I do believe they existed, and some would say that they exist today.
No, well, there's depictions that I have seen that when they refer to giants, obviously the biggest one would be the Samson and Goliath story that you can reference in any Bible that you can put your hands on. I have you seen any depictions with them having wings?
Giants with wings.
Yeah,
Not,
since we're
not,
talking,
not that I can recall.
since we're talking about angels, angels often are depicted with wings. I was just wondering if any of the offspring had wings.
Well, that's I think that came about during the Greek ages, the depictions of the angels with wings. There's I don't know if there's a biblical precedence for it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Except for like the cherubim and the seraphim, which when an angel's a generic term. There's seraphim, cherubim, the Raphaim are, I think, the pronunciation or the correct term for the giants,
Hmm.
or Raphaim. But no, I've not. I've heard of them with horns, with two heads and stuff like that, but never with wings.
So obviously, with the giants and with the government hints that there's been some genetic manipulation back from World War One and World War Two, when they're trying to create the perfect soldier, the super soldier. Have you heard tell of any of these abominations? Chimera, I guess that's the correct term. Uh,
Yes,
Still among us.
yes, sir. I have, and that's what I was talking about in the deep underground military bases. I believe that they're still doing these genetic splicings and mixing creatures together. I don't believe that ever stopped. Like Joseph Mengele, they called him Doctor Death. He was really big into that kind of stuff. So I honestly do believe that's still going on.
There was a recent a story over in Russia. It was either last year or the year before, where this scientist was attempting to transplant a viable head to a viable body. To I don't know what the details were, how they came upon this viable body. Um, what is your perspective on that? Should we be doing stuff like that?
Absolutely not. That's men playing God, and it never ends well. No, I don't believe we should be messing with that stuff whatsoever. It never is never gonna. I mean, and honestly, I believe that's what we have when we have the Gorgons back in the day, like the Minotaur, Medusa. I believe that that's ancient hidden technology, or alien technology, whatever anybody wants to call it, fallen angel technology, where they were splicing different creatures and together and mixing this with that and men with fish and all sorts of madness. It's never going to be a good thing.
Um, with these chimera, uh, obviously with your research, have you come across suspect cases where these genetically altered creatures might be the culprit, or whatever spurred you on to start investigating this area?
That's a good question. And I asked myself, like, it's about 4 months ago, what if they're all chimera? We don't know. What if they're all these strange amalgamations of creatures and humans or stuff like that?
Gee whiz. So
Yeah, that's the big.
that's a lot to just wrap your brains around.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest. I was just sitting there one day and I was thinking about what you just asked, and I was like, well, how do I know they're not all that? How do I know they're not all just some sort of strange experimentation? The outcome of it.
Well, as I've been doing this podcasting and kind of growing within the community, I've come across a few folks that have had a rather robust military history, and I'm sure you've come across that too. And on several occasions, not just one of them, I've got two or three folks that I've befriended, and I've always kind of squirreled in this question about giants. Have they come across giants in their military careers? And all of them absolutely shut up. This is, I can't divulge any kind of information because I've made an oath to the United States government.
Wow.
Have you come across anything like that? I'm kind of this questiony kind of guy that I'm like my grandmother. I'll be doing a discussion with you, and we're not even covering anything. Hey, have you seen a giant?
Yeah. The only thing and this is before I start the research or anything, I'd heard the story about giants years ago, and when I was in college, I have one of my cousins. He's actually from Cotton Valley, Louisiana. He became a colonel in the army. And I've been hearing these stories about giants over there in Afghanistan. And I asked him about it. And he's like, a very tough guy, but he's got a very sweet disposition, loves his family. And I asked him about it. And like, he didn't even answer me. Got the most serious look on his face and just shook his head and walked off. So that's the closest I've come to that.
Yeah, that's basically the reaction I get. One person I pressed a little bit, and I got that rebuttal with, I took an oath I can't divulge anything I've seen, kind of deal. So I'm like,
that's a good enough answer.
Yeah.
I just found it strange. I didn't know if he was like, okay, my little cousin's lost his mind asking me about giants, or you know what I mean? So
yeah. It's just crazy stuff that you come across, and what is out there that's really out there. Obviously we talked about angels and fallen angels and all these crazy things that could come from mixing the fallen angels and man and all that stuff. What is in Antarctica? There's been stories over the last 6 or 7 years where heads of state have went down there, from John Kerry Kerry. Former Vice President Kerry went down there, the Pope, the head of the Russian church, I forgot what the Russian church called, went down there. All these religious figures, heads of states, people of power, have migrated down there for whatever reason. Have you come across any stories or heard anybody, sort of say, "Hey, Dee, I got a story for you"?
No, not any personal stories. There's all sorts of things, like there's a tropical oasis there someplace, or Hitler's underground city or underground country, or that's where the firmament is, the edge of the earth. I've heard all sorts of stories like that, but I've never heard anything personally from anyone who's actually been there.
I've come close once. I knew a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy kind of story, but that's as close as I've got to anybody that was had any connection with Antarctica, other than the stories that you see in blog posts.
I'd definitely love to hear something. Yeah, I'd definitely like to hear somebody who's been down there.
Yeah. what would be your suspect? Why, obviously these oases and stuff, and this global warming, and there, around Antarctica itself has a series of volcanoes that are active underneath the crust of the ice that a lot of people don't really know about, but is active and is compensatory to saying that these active volcanoes are melting this ice sheet that's over Antarctica. Right. Have you heard tell of them uncovering ancient cities and stuff? We said oasis and stuff, and maybe the Nazis had some crap down there or something like that. But have you heard of any ancient remnants that have been uncovered by these ice sheets melting?
I heard that it's, everything from the original Garden of Eden to, Stargates. I've heard it all, but what I honestly believe is going on down there is it some sort of ridiculous ancient technology that's still in operation.
Oh man. Okay. Total switch. Just laid out on the line. This is out of left field. Do you believe in flat Earth?
I like the theory of it, but no.
But no. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like I've seen I don't know. There's a lot of very, very compelling arguments out there, but nah, I don't believe it's a flat Earth. It could possibly be, but
I'm open to somebody arguing with me about it. Yeah. That's about as close as I get to a flat Earth. I've got some flat Earth friends that really are deep, dyed-in-the-wool flat Earthers. That's all they discuss. Kind of stuff, and I'm open to be argued with about it, but I've yet to got the. Wait a minute, what did you just say? That kind of stuff. I've researched. There's some
there's some compelling arguments and stuff, like interesting things that people are saying about it, but nah, I don't know. Like if somebody, if a private pilot gets me up in a plane and we drive to what they call the firmament. And you know what I mean? And like we actually hit some sort of an ice shelf or hit the firmament, or he can show it to me and say, see, look, it's a flat plane. Then yeah, I absolutely believe it. But I'm not gonna subscribe to it until I can put my hands on some sort of evidence. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds like your house is becoming more active. So, Dee, do you have anything that you want to promote or anything like that? Obviously, we mentioned your Facebook pages. If you want to go through all your sites that you look after.
Yeah, we're on Twitter, Instagram is Bigfoot.Doss. DOSS. We are on Twitter, I think I said, the Facebook page and our YouTube page.
Yeah, go over to Dee Doss's Bigfoot Dogman Research Project, BDRP, on YouTube, or over on his Facebook page. I think he just mentioned that he just has a Twitter page over there, BDRP, Bigfoot Dogman Research Project. Find out what Dee Doss is up to next over there on his social media pages there. Now, folks, 8 p.m. Central Time. That is the time that you're going to find me on the Dark Waters radio channel. And we've expanded our dates that we actually do broadcast this podcast on. This Monday through Saturdays as of right now, 8 p.m. Central Time. But Saturday nights is when we drop new shows. 8 p.m. Central Time on the Dark Waters radio channel. Go to IamDarkWaters.com. Subscribe today, and you'll get all my podcasts and future podcasts there. Plus, you'll get exposure to Dark Waters, the King of Horror Narrations, library of paranormal radio and entertainment content right there. IamDarkWaters.com. And, folks, like I said, 8 p.m. Central Time. Join me on the Dark Waters radio channel, and let's chase the truth. Hey folks, thanks for listening to this best of sample of some of my 5 years in doing this radio show podcast called Chasing the Truth. Please visit IamDarkWaters.com, or you can email me at ShawnG at IamDarkWaters.com. And my numbers and links are in the description below. God bless y'all, and I'll catch you on the flip side.